The problems in our long-term care homes. This morning, breaking news just after 9, Marilee Fullerton, the minister responsible for long-term care in this province, announced that the province now will appoint managers of these institutions where necessary to try and figure out what's going on and why they're so hard hit. More importantly, if they have the help they need for those who live inside. Let's find out from someone who knows the industry very well if this is enough and whether we do need a full-blown public inquiry, as the NDP leader, Andrea Horwath, has been saying. The next guest, Amy Friesen, spent 15 years working for several retirement residents here in the city of Ottawa. She's founder and CEO of Tea and Toast, which helps connect seniors and families with the right retirement option for them. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning. How are you?
I am well. When you heard about these managers going into these homes, what were your first thoughts?
It's hard if you're going to have somebody come in from outside to just, start managing everything else, right? So it's a difficult decision, I think. I'm not sure how it'll work, to tell you the truth.
So what do you think is necessary? Not that.
Well, they've always needed to, for long-term care, I work in retirement living mostly, but for long-term care, they've always needed to relook, and Doug Ford is, saying we are relooking, but we're trying to kind of fix this problem at the moment, and they've always needed to kind of restructure, and staffing's always been an issue. So I think that these issues have always been existing, and it is a vulnerable population, and it's even more vulnerable than the retirement industry in some facts. So, they've always needed to look at this. So now, this gives them an opportunity to do that, but they're also jumping into a crisis situation with no other knowledge, probably. I mean, I don't know who's going to be managing, right? So
this isn't even a Band-Aid, is it?
No, I don't think so. I think that they're going to come in and step on a lot of toes, possibly.
And then try and familiarize themselves as they try to take over the business, which takes time.
Well, it takes time, and how quick are they going to be able to do that? I'm sure that if the long-term care homes had the adequate resources in the first place, or even now, they would be doing not just fine, but better.
So what about if, pardon me for interrupting, what if they assign doctor teams to go into each of these homes and spend a couple of days in assessing? Would that help?
I think that would be pretty awesome. I mean, they would be able to have a better idea as opposed to some random management. I don't know who they would put in the first place.
Yeah.
At least someone with that background, but, it often comes down to staffing levels, and, now it was PPE equipment running out and things like that.
The Premier said yesterday, when he was asked whether there has to be a public inquiry into what's happened in long-term care homes specifically here, given the number of deaths. Hardest hit sector, I think it's 80% of the deaths in this country in that sector. He said, we're going to review it. And then the reporter, in a smart follow-up, said, well, we've had fewer deaths in this province that led to full-blown inquiries, i.e. SARS. What's he waiting for?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think they've got so much public outcry currently that they're just trying to figure out which part to review first and how fast they can move.
Well, did we learn anything from these other public inquiries that we could implement ASAP?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. That's what Andrea Horwath told me this morning when I interviewed her on TV. She was saying, look, we have solutions. They just have to be implemented. Why don't we start there and have, not never mind a review when this is over, but a public inquiry. And she, in fact, is calling, and I want your take on this, she is calling that it no longer be private sector availability to run these homes. She says it should be run like a hospital. In other words, it becomes part of the healthcare system in the country to ensure that everybody's treated equally.
Well, and I have seen that before as well, and I think that the main concern was, again, in staffing and how much money private versus public is spending on staff levels.
Yeah.
And trying to take it back and maybe revert back to an older system where, the government or the cities owned the long-term care to make sure, because they are operating with quite a bit of more of a vulnerable population than anywhere, right?
Yeah, and the genie's already out of the bottle, because if you start saying, look, we're going to take it back, we're going to have to invest billions of dollars at a time when we don't have millions, never mind billions to invest. And then you sort of say, okay, Ontario, this is how we're going to do it, or Canada, this is how you're going to do it. It's kind of like saying I'm going to introduce two-tier healthcare. It's political suicide.
Yeah, I think it's a very big storm about to come, because I don't know that the private owners will want to give that up very easily as well, right? So what is that going to look like? A lot of these owners also own the retirement homes too, right? So that's also been a problem with the mixture of long-term care and retirement and the same ownership. So it's been an ongoing issue, just trying to even divide the two industries as well. So I don't know that they'd want to give up the long-term care part of it.
We should say, and to your point, you've worked mostly in retirement residences here. It's different than long-term care because of a number of things, but most importantly, I would imagine the health of the residents.
Yeah, the retirement in Ottawa specifically, retirement homes can take and do the kind of amount of care that long-term care can do, except for long-term care is more subsidized, right? It's private pay, but it is subsidized. So that's a really big difference between. And then again, long-term care is more hospital-like, where retirement homes, like I usually call them, are more cruise ship on land, right? They're more home-centered.
Yeah. Well, we don't. That's a bad example right now, however, a bad comparison, right?
Yeah, well, and a lot of the people are still, they confuse retirement and long-term care all the time as well, and we're educating the public still, and it's not the same outlook in retirement living as it is in long-term care right now. Long-term care is just exploding with this.
So, do you think part of the way they dropped the ball is that when someone got sick, they didn't immediately move them to an emergency room or ICU?
Well, yeah, if that is happening, then that is probably a big deterrent. I know in retirement, as soon as the outbreak status is as soon as one person, as opposed to used to be 3 people, are ill, then they have to go in outbreak, right, and lock everything down. I just don't think people moved as fast. At the first of this, what are we, 9 weeks in now? At the first of this, a lot of people didn't even know if it was real, right? And they didn't know, well, we'll just kind of get over this part and we'll move on. But even now with everybody going back to work and stuff, our sector is going to be last.
Well, there's a big ethical question that has revisited now because we've sort of become impatient with the way things are reopening. And people are saying, well, look at the Swedish model. Look at the Swedish model. People are dying in Sweden. The average age, in fact, is 81. So now you're asking us to basically commit ageism. Mm-hmm. Aren't we?
Yeah. Yep.
Does that seem fair?
Yeah, I think that it's very difficult to, it's very difficult to pinpoint, right? Yeah. And everything is so up in the air with all of the decisions right now, and everybody's looking very closely now at a system that was already broken in the first place.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We forget that it's not like we're cleaning up a mess. The mess was there before. I went through a list this morning with, for example, people not taking baths enough. Mm-hmm. They are not changing the sheets or their adult diapers enough. They're not providing proper meals to these people. As the cuts came in, as the quality standards were lowered by government after government, maybe you can tell me why. Do you know why they would do that and allow less quality PPE into these homes?
I have no idea. It's baffling to me. You can't speak out of both sides, right? You have to give them the equipment that they need and support them in order to keep everybody safe, right? So. Right. It's kind of been like that forever. It's always been like that, trying to make sure that the long-term care homes are properly taken care of. But with continued cuts, it's impossible. And I deal with that out in the community with families too. And a lot of families are even choosing to go into retirement homes and pay the extra money just so they don't have to go into the long-term care system.
Wow. Tea and Toast, what do you guys do?
We help people who are looking for retirement living. We are advisors, and we are able to narrow down the research from 80 hours to 3 hours.
Wow.
So we're able to help people really quickly, and we also do long-term care navigation as well.
Holding hands of families through this tough times.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Amy Friesen, founder and CEO of Tea and Toast.